Right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Sim Experience South Africa Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 9, coming to you live from Montreal Circuit in Canada, or otherwise known as the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, named after the famous driver. I'm your commentator, Dennis Mitchell. I'm joined once again by Sean Woodgate. Good evening, Sean.
Good evening, Dennis. Good evening, everybody. Nice to be in Montreal.
So tonight is, of course, the penultimate round of the championship. So this is the Montreal circuit. Next week we'll be heading over to the Monza circuit, which is another fantastic venue. Just a quick roundup of our points. How the points work is the driver that gets first place in both race 1 and race 2 will score 25 points. There are 2 points for pole position, and there's also 2 points for both fastest laps in race 1 and in race 2. Our standings coming into this round. We have Gerrit Bierkes, who has actually taken the championship already on 374 points. We have Jandre Duppenaar in second place on 193 points, and Sean Olivier in third place on 167 points. In fourth place, moving up into fourth place, is Chris Collison. Jean-Louis Dutoy moving down into fifth place. Jason Underwood, sixth. Monet Deploy, seventh. Stanton Augustus, eighth. Unfortunately not here tonight either. Peter Geldenaes in ninth. Julian Brains in 10th. Rian van der Westhuizen in 11th, Dinesh Singh in 12th, Peter Murray in 13th. In 14th place, Marius van Dijk, who is our current veteran leader. In 15th place, Christian Lavas. In 16th place, Andre Hildebrandt. In 17th place, Donovan van Mark. In 18th place, Timo Smit. So Timo has slowly been working his way down, only having done the first round, so that's quite fantastic that he's managed to stay there up until the penultimate round. But we're about to cross live, but before we do, just a reminder, we do have a pro and a veteran category. Our pro category drivers will have the red next to their names. The veteran drivers will have the yellow next to their names. The veteran drivers take part in the main championship as well as the veterans championship. So a veteran driver might finish in 10th place in every race and finish 10th overall in the pro category, but he'll also finish first in the veterans category. So after the final round, we will show a tally of points with our veteran drivers. But I believe the qualifying is now live, so we're going to jump live to qualifying. Let us transition over to qualifying. So right, we are now live for qualifying. This is qualifying proper. It is a wet qualifying. The drivers have to adapt to the conditions. It's likely to dry though, but this is official qualifying for the Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 9, a 30-minute qualifying session. We'll be watching the drivers now, just getting used to the conditions, and you'll see it'll start to dry as well. So the fastest laps will come towards the end. But just a reminder, I am your commentator, Dennis Mitchell, and once again I'm joined by Sean Woodgate. So Sean, how's your week been? Bit better than this wet and treacherous conditions, I hope.
Yeah, I'm just looking where they are at the moment, which is turn, let me get it right, turn 2, the center curve. But what's interesting about turn 2 is that the pit lane exit joins right into turn 2. So the guys that are going around turn 2 in the on the track proper, as well as anybody who might have to go in and out of the pits, they have to be very aware of each other. But luckily for turn 2, the drivers that come and cross the finish line and then go through turn 1, they'll be able to look to their left and see if there are any cars that are coming onto the track out of the pit lane. So the cars that are coming out of pit lane have to keep to the left, and the guys that are on the circuit have to keep to the right. There's a white line on the road, but it can be quite tricky that you get involved with a guy leaving the pits on cold tires and somebody coming around at speed into turn 2, the center curve.
So this particular track is known for giving various kinds of weather conditions over a race meeting. It's dubbed the track that gives all 4 seasons in a day. So we're expecting all kinds of weather as well through our event. At the moment it's predicted to start off wet for qualifying and then dry, and there might be some rain in race 2 by the looks of things. So race 1 should be a dry race, qualifying should be dry towards the end. So we'll keep an eye on the qualifying times, and they should get a lot faster. At the moment we have Gerrit Bierkes in provisional pole on a 1:45. We know they have been in the 36s in the dry conditions, so the lap time is about 9 seconds off where they should be at the moment.
Yeah, it's a circuit that, strangely enough, not many names to any of the corners. The one I've given you now is turn 2, which is the center curve. Then there's a right-left combination, turn 3 and 4. That's known as Pont de la Concorde. And that's about it. After that, you go through a sweep to the right, which is the end of sector 1, just before you get to a 90-degree left, followed by a 90-degree right. And that is simply known as turn 6 and 7. And then the track, that's the one part for those that are interested in what compass heading you're going. Between turn 7 and 8, you're going north. And it has another right-left combination heading towards the hairpin. Now, the hairpin you've probably seen already. It is quite a vicious 180 slow hairpin. And after the hairpin, it's interesting, depending which track map you look at, whether you actually have two changes of direction, because they're not really corners, but they're effectively all part of the casino straight until you get to the chicane and the Wall of Champions. Now, when you get to the chicane, the interesting thing there is that this is the hairpin. You can't miss it just looking from this pavilion point of view. The interesting thing with a chicane is that's if you go dead straight, then you go into the pits. And of course, the guy that might be slipstreaming you wouldn't know if you're going into the pits or not. I think we've seen an accident happen in Formula One there before, where somebody's slowed down to go into the pits and the guy behind him has driven straight into him. This is the Wall of Champions. So on my map, it's given as turn 13 and 14. On other maps, it's turns 12 and 13. So let's just refer to it as the chicane and then the Wall of Champions. Here's turn 1 that I said if they look to their right, then they'll see if any cars are exiting. And here's the pit lane exit straight into turn 2, which is the center curve. And yeah, the next 2 turns, this one to the right, the next one to the left, that's Pont de la Concorde. And that's about it for names. The rest are all just corner numbers. Sean, well, if you're giving it everything and then some.
Yeah, I imagine we'll see a couple of spinners in this session towards the beginning stages of it. Hopefully as it dries, the guys get a bit more grip down and it feels a bit easier. It's quite difficult in these cars. Some drivers are saying I actually like the car in the wet, but I found when I drive the car, it's a very tail happy car. So obviously with the motor at the back, it has a pendulum effect. Once the motor starts to come around, it's very difficult to hold it. You rely on the tire grip. So when it's wet, you have to be a lot more cautious.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So nice. In the read-up that I did do to try and find some information is exactly what you said, Dennis, is this is actually on an island. So there's actually a highway that connects this island to the mainland, and there's Gerrit going the wide route, and certainly would be scrubbing that lap if it were to be a flying lap. But yes, connected to the mainland by road, and certainly they have quite a few grandstands around the circuit. So I think it must be, there's one grandstand that's on the outside of turn 3, which must be a stunning place to sit, because you get to see the cars coming through the chicane, across the finish line, turns 1, 2, any cars that are coming out of the pit lane, and then turn 3 and 4 as well. Here at the hairpin, you can see the major grandstands they've got there as well. A lot of action. One of the points that if you can get your car up on the inside, there are pros and cons to it. If you're up on the inside, you're off the racing line, so you'll be on the marbles in dry conditions. But you then have the better line. If you can slow yourself down and keep your competitor wide, you'll then have a better exit, hopefully. If he were to, however, get a good slingshot, then down the casino straight, he might still retain the lead. It's the Wall of Champions, which you don't want to have your name written on.
Well, maybe you do, because if you go into it, the name of the Wall of Champions is drivers that have driven to it generally become world champions in the future. So if you drive into it, that's a good omen. Not for the night that you drive into it, but for your future.
You talk about the changeable weather conditions. I think one of the most famous wins here in Canada at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve was Jenson Button. I think the weather changed twice or 3 times even in the race. And with the last change to go from wets to slicks, he actually got in and out of the pits first on the slicks. It was tricky initially, but he got the tires hot and up to speed quickly. And by the time everybody else had to go into the pits, I think he was holding off Sebastian, or the guy that was holding him off for the lead was Sebastian Vettel. and they went through the finish line in turn one, and then Sebastian's tires were just shot and he had to let Jenson Button go for eventually the victory. But when Jenson Button came out of the pit lane, he was stone last. So it just goes to show that changing to a different tire compound can be critical for a race result.
Yeah, I think a lot of the famous drivers that have had their amazing championship wins, like we've had the Schumachers, we've had, I think even Jacques Villeneuve had a good win here, if I remember correctly, in 97. Seems to be with this amazing change of weather, and they seem to, looks like they're out of it, and then everything changes and they sort of end up at the front again, thanks to the weather, making the right decisions when the weather's changing, staying out long enough or pitting early enough to go to a tyre which maybe everyone else thinks isn't the right tyre. And as the weather changes, it just benefits them, and the drivers that have good feel, drivers like Alonso as well, that can drive a slick tyre on wet conditions for much longer, or make a wet tyre last longer on a drying track. Those are the drivers that tend to work the way to the front in these changeable conditions, and that's usually the top drivers.
Yeah, certainly an interesting track. I think the bit that they're on now heads approximately, we just wait for the change of direction. There's it's not a chicane, but it's a bit broad for a chicane, and then it sweeps to the right, and I think about now they're heading in a northerly direction. We just get the change of direction here again. Two turns there after each other, then there's a straight bit again until just before the hairpin is the end of sector 2. So before they go into that left-right combination at the back straight, that is the end of sector 1, and then just before they exit, you don't go onto the gravel or the wall. The wall is the worst place to be.
That's not the Wall of Champions, unfortunately.
No. Yeah. So just before the hairpin, if we give you the sector times later during the race, then from the start-finish line until just before turn 6, that's sector 1. So from just before turn 6 till just before the hairpin, that's sector 2. And of course, from that point just before the hairpin until the finish line again, that is sector 3. Yeah, they're really pushing. That's Chris Collison taking the high road, so actually getting not onto the brakes and having to go off the circuit, but luckily not into the grass, because the grass is terrible in the wet. You've got absolutely no grip, and you're a passenger.
We have Jason Underwood saying he's on his way, so he'll be joining shortly as well.
Well, with 17 and a half minutes to go, he might still get a lap or two in. This is his teammate, Team Harder Racing, coming past the Wall of Champions. And on his way to the finish line, let's see what Chris does to the lap time, if anything. Well, I think he, because he went off, the lap was discarded by the system, so it didn't give him a lap time. But he's about a second behind Gerrit Beekes, who's got pole position at the moment. So close, but not close enough yet, but still 17 minutes to go.
Right, so Chris on a good lap at the moment. Looks like the rain is almost stopped. Ooh, as I said, Chris was on a good lap there, he lost it.
Yeah, he actually did very, very well to hold on to that, because the back end stepped out, and luckily he didn't overcorrect and just let it hang out until the speed scrubbed off, and then he could get the car back onto the tarmac again. But yes, it does do terrible things to your lap times. Is D-Nash also using the road and then some in and out of the hairpin? So there's a nice big, looks like a TV screen there. I think that the drivers use that. They actually can see who's behind them and how far. And yeah, as I say, there's two changes of directions, and depending which map you read, they give them numbers, but they're not really corners. So here you'll see now at the end of the Casino Straight, there's the road into, and that's where D-Nash is going, into the pits. If you were going to go right there, that would be the chicane and then the Wall of Champions on the right.
I'm surprised he put it, because he was actually on a personal best lap there. Looks like the rain has now stopped, so the track should now start to dry. So perhaps he was going in to grab a set of dry tires.
I think more than likely. There's still quite a bit of spray though, but there's definitely a racing line. But even on the racing line, there's still a bit of spray behind the cars. So I'm not quite sure that dries are the way to go. And of course, in this formula and the tires available to you, you don't have intermediates. It's wet or dry.
You see now Rian has now gone to the pits, so it looks like some of the drivers deciding it's time to jump to pits. Or maybe it's just to put on a fresh set of wets. So with the track still being damp, although the rain has stopped, maybe a fresh set of wets will work quite well now. Sean getting a good slide there.
The thing is with wet weather tires is if the track isn't wet, they actually wear excessively and they get hot, which is also not a good thing for race speed and race craft, because they tend to blister and you then have to lower your speed and try and get the tires to cool down. Alternatively, you've got to go and look for wet patches to cool the car down, and the whole thing about getting a good lap time is to stay on the racing line. But yes, if you're racing with wet tires on a dry track, it's also not going to do you very well.
So Sean, fastest overall in Sector 1, so the track must be drying. He's got the hammer down now, although he was only 4 tenths shy of Harriet, although he actually was up to Harriet's speed in some of the practice sessions, and he was ahead of Harriet in one of the practice sessions, so I think Sean might be challenging tonight.
He had a good race weekend last weekend, if I recall. Let's see if we can carry it through to another one.
Definitely on a good one here. 2 purples, so fastest Sector 1, fastest Sector 2.
I actually missed him moving up into second because Jandre was in second behind Gerrit. But yeah, this is where it all counts. Good speed down the Casino Straight and then the chicane. You've got to get the chicane right. If you get that right, then you get a good entry. Uses some of the curbing, not all of it, just keeps off the wall. Did he actually rub it?
I think he rubbed it, yes. As we saw Chris Collison go provisional pole, is he about to steal it? No.
I think maybe, yes he does.
Okay, it was delayed on the left. It showed fastest on the right, but it actually delayed by a second or two. So yeah, good lap there.
Yeah, so we're now down to the 145.19 for Sean Olivier, 145.46 for Chris Collison, Gerrit Beekers, 145.51. So 0.3 of a second separates first, second, and third.
The track noticeably drying now. You can see the spray is definitely subsiding.
Yeah, so with 12 minutes to go and doing, let's say, 2 minutes to a lap, if you've got to get out of the pit lane with 2 minutes 15, I would say, at least to go, to get temperature into the tires if you're going to go out on dries, get used to the point at where they grip and where not. Don't throw it away on the lap and then cross the finish line with 10 or 15 seconds to go and then give it everything on that one set of dry tires for those that are willing to run the risk of doing a lap on dry tires. But as you said, the spray is certainly less. There is a dry racing line on most of the circuit now, so certainly I think that's going to happen there. It's a bit wet still, so we'll have to see whether they're going to take a chance there or not.
Donovan getting a nice rotation with the car there. Sometimes you can use the rotation to your advantage, but that's the thing. You need the grip to be able to grip up out of the slide, and with the wet it's a lot harder to do that. Some guys maybe find it easier because it's a bit slower in the way that it does it. Be smooth around there. You can see the car sort of moving around a little bit, but he's holding it nicely. Currently still on the wet tires. You can see the blue marks on his part of his tire wall there.
Right, so where's Dinash? He's in 8th position and on wets. Here's the first. Julian Brains is going out on slicks. So it's indicated that way, but he hasn't got a time on at all. So I don't think he's been out at all, and maybe he's going to be running the risk that lap's going to be thrown away for Donovan because of cutting the corner there or just missing the corner completely.
We can see the tires, sorry to butt in, we can see the tires there on the board. Everyone with the W, that's a wet, and then Julian with the red, that's the dry.
He's yet to come out though.
He's out on track.
Okay, so there he goes. In the green colors, the car recognizes it quite easily, or I recognize the car quite easily. And I think he's got to find his own limits now. He's got 10, almost 11 minutes in which to do so. So I think there's enough time for him to determine where there is and where there isn't grip. He lets one of the quicker guys go through, which is a good thing to do. I mean, you're still out there trying to determine your own personal limits and the tires that you've chosen. And Marius van Wyk is also out on dry tires now. So So two of the guys that are a quick blink and 10 minutes 20 seconds to go, so they'll try and see if they can make a difference. This, as I say, this corner, no names of interest really. Here's that slight left-hand curve that you saw, that's about the end of sector 2. Here's the hairpin. Still a lot of spray in the hairpin, but the guys will be slowing down there, and hopefully it's dry enough on the racing line on the dry tires to actually slow the car down. We'll see soon once the guys get through there at speed. Chris Collinson's on dry and he's in third.
This is interesting. I think that time in third though was down on the wets. At the moment, we see Rian's just come out of the pits and Julian's come out of the pits. So they've come out at the same time on different tires. So we'll see how their laps progress, because Julian is behind, he's on the slicks, Rian currently on the wets. As you say, Chris has now come out on the slicks as well, so we can keep an eye out for Chris. Let's see how their laps differ. We'll jump to Julian once we get through sector 1 and compare sectors.
Yandre did a all-time best in sector 1, and I think a personal best in sector 2, and he's on, where's he disappeared? He's actually gone across the finish line and jumped up into second. A good time there for Yandre, not quite quick enough to catch Gerrit Beekes, but that also still set on wet tires. So we'll have to see what Chris Collison's going to be able to do, and Julian Brains when he gets across. Oh, that car hanging the tail end out. I think somebody's just joined the server.
It will be Jason.
Yeah, it skips a heartbeat. Yes, it is Jason, as he pops up at the bottom of the lap scoring monitor there.
Now look at this. Julian is now catching Rian. So they went out. Sector 1 for Julian was a 39.5. It was a 32.9 for Rian. So even though Rian's sector was way faster, we've seen him make mistakes after. And I think Julian is now getting up to speed as the tires are warming. So we'll see how this progresses. He's definitely catching. So those sectors I think are a bit deceptive.
Yeah, and he's holding the racing, not the racing line, he's following the circuit. Whereas the car in front of him is all over the place, except not where I think the racing line is intended.
We've got Gerrit out on slicks now as well. It looks like the guys are all jumping onto slicks. Okay, so sector 2, we have Rian on a 35.1 and we have Julian on a 32.8. The tyres are starting to warm up. They're now 3 seconds a lap fast there. So he lost 7 seconds in sector 1. His next lap I think will be the lap to watch.
That being said, though, Yandre is flying with purples in sector 1 and 2, a 31.5 in sector 2, and a 32 seconds dead in sector 1. So watch out for Yandre. It looks as though he's taking and a personal best in sector 3, but it's not enough to pop him into first. He's now only half a second behind Gerrit Beekes, but interesting, he set up that very good time still on the wet tires.
And I think he's going to start running out. He's probably at the max of the wets as he's now pitted. We have Gerrit about to start a lap on slicks. We have Chris currently on a lap. He did a 32.8. That is on the slick tires.
You compare that to Yandre's sector 1 purple, which is 32 seconds dead. So that's the dries are 2.20 seconds behind in that one sector. So I'm not sure that the weather has dried up enough to go out on the dry tires yet. It's sort of in between. But that being said, it's over 6 minutes still to go. So plenty of time still to get the circuit to dry. And you don't want to risk being stuck in the pits and not having enough time to complete your out lap to actually get one time lapping. So maybe it's a good thing to go in and get the dry tires on, but then you don't want to run the risk of running into the wall either. So yeah, the pits are on the left-hand side. You can see all the grid positions, the slots painted there. There's the start line. Coming up to turn 1, if you were to look left here, you'd see anybody leaving the pits. You'd see them there. Here's turn 2, the center curve. You see the pit joining there, and out of turn 2, the next 2 corners, right, left, Pont de la Concorde, and then they go into a sweep to the right. This is the right, left, Pont de la Concorde, and the circuit certainly has, the casino straight is also not dead straight, but certainly here's the end of sector 1, then it's the left-right combination. That this section also, though curving, you plus minus going in a northerly direction now. on your way down to turn number 6.
Hopefully YouTube is running alright. Unfortunately, I've had a bit of a hiccup on the YouTube. It hasn't been showing me my window. It did this last week as well actually, but it seemed like it was streaming fine, so hopefully all is good. If you're watching everything live.
A lovely grandstand certainly at this circuit. If you look at them there, then there are lots of viewing points.
Chris has decided to pop it into the pits. Sean on the lap now. Sean currently in sector 1. Let's see what his lap time looks like. I believe Sean is also on the soft tyre, getting a bit of a damp patch on the grass there. Oh, I think he's gone off track there.
Julian got a personal best in sector 1 and a purple in sector 2. So if he can put together a good sector 3, he's still coming up towards sector 3 to complete sector 3. Here's the casino straight, so he's just gone around the hairpin. So we'll see what he does, and he's definitely going to jump from 11th to single-digit position on the grid. He comes through the chicane now. It was actually far wide. He could have probably had another 5 kilometers an hour or so. But let's see where Julian Brains is going to jump up to. I certainly think it's going to be much higher than 11th.
Third.
And third position. So the dry tires are really coming to it now. There he slides the back end out, so that's not going to be so good for a lap time. So yes, great time for him there. He's only 0.7 of a second off Gerrit Beekes, and Gerrit now comes into the purples. Purple there in sector 1. So Gerrit just wants to dominate completely again. So he's really flying on the dry tires. Everybody on dry tires now.
Sean Olivier was lighting up the times and then spun out of the hairpin. So I think he would have gone to original pole, but then just dropped it, unfortunately.
Just one mistake. We saw it last week as well. One small mistake can potentially make such a big difference. A little bit of spray. Ooh, somebody's off at the hairpin at high speed. I'm not quite sure who that was.
I think it was Donovan from Mark who just got it wrong there.
Yeah, I think he was on a wet patch when he hit the brake markers, and just the car didn't slow down at all. So I'm not sure if he's going to get out again. There's the Flying Bumblebee in all its glory, and let's see what that's going to do. Wall of Champions. He got a personal best in sector 2, not a purple, but certainly I think that'll improve his overall time if he gets a personal best, and he gets up to a 144.269, but things change very quickly. For a moment, he was only 0.01 of a second ahead of Jason, but then putting in this good lap now, Gerrit is 1.5 seconds ahead of Jason Underwood. So that's the gap from first to second, and it's virtually 2 seconds in total between Gerrit and Jan-Ray Dippenaar. So he's just got the setup on this car so good and gets to run it so smooth, so quickly. Oh, that's not going to do that lap time very well, Julian. So Julian, where's he stuck to? He's in second, would you believe? So he certainly got onto the tire at the right time and got it flying. So 1.4 seconds behind Gerrit Beekes, but still, I think it'll be his best qualifying for the season.
You can keep it there, yes, definitely.
Yes. What is the time left? 1.5 minutes to go. And that means whoever finishes this lap and crosses the finish line, that will then start their last lap. So Jason's going to come round. Jason got himself up into third position. So in a very short period of time, he was up into third. So he's going to cross now with 1 minute 12. And as we all know, the laps here are 140 something. So if you can cross, and now it's only a minute to go. So if you can cross the line, here he comes up to the chicane on the Wall of Champions. So he will definitely complete this lap and start one more. So this will be a last lap for Jason Underwood.
Might even be a pole position. Let's see, does he jump up? Second place.
Second lap, well done. So Julian drops down to fourth, Chris Collison into third, but they can't catch Gerrit because Gerrit is still 0.3 of a second ahead of Jason Underwood. So Jason's last lap coming up now, and he will probably know that, and he will be giving it everything to see if he can take that pole position. It certainly is, now that the track is dry, going to be interesting. Everybody will be over. They'll have had a few laps of dry conditions. Here's Adrian Belder. Adrian Belder, he was last. He had personal bests. And let's see if he can improve on 12th position. Only 12 riders, unfortunately, drivers out there tonight. So Arjan goes up to 11th.
Donovan for Mark actually in 4th place, also having a good qualifying at the moment. Julian has dropped down to 7th. So we'll see if Julian, I believe Julian is actually still in the pits, judging by the icon next to his name not being lit up white. Julian and Marius, I think, are the two drivers in the pits. Sean Olivier has just jumped up to provisional pole.
My goodness.
Donovan just gone fastest overall in Sector 1.
So it's happening all on the last lap, because all of these drivers now will be on their last lap, because we have 22. We've actually run out of time already. It's minus 22 seconds. So this is the last time we'll see them come round here in anger. But certainly they are trying to give their best. Chris Collison in pole position with a 141.5. Sean Olivier in second, a 142.4. Gerrit Beekers down in third, a 42.8. So now the gap all of a sudden, Chris Collison put in a stunning lap while we were talking about the other guys. He's 0.9 of a second ahead of Sean, but purple for Gerrit. So he's coming back to make this pole position again. So Gerrit on to sector 3, and if he can repeat that, then certainly he's going to jump back into pole position again. So everything happening here right at the end.
Let's see, will this be pole? I presume it will.
See if he gets it purple.
A second ahead of Chris. Wow, okay.
So, and it's by a second. So not only does he go faster than Chris, he goes faster than him by a second, a full second. So it's 1 second between Gerrit Beekers and Chris Collison, and then another second, well, 0.9 of a second further back to Sean Olivier. But I think it's his best qualifying for Sean for the season. Rian van der Westhuizen is in a great 4th position. And Dinesh Singh, well done, 5th position as well.
Right at the last moment there. So that's, I think, our last driver that's decided to now pit. So we're going to jump to an ad break, and we'll be back shortly for race 1.
Until then.
Alright, welcome back everybody. This of course is race 1 of the Sim Experience South Africa Weldmech Porsche Supercup round 9, coming to you live from the Montreal or Circuit Gilles Villeneuve circuit in Canada. I'm your commentator Dennis Mitchell, joined once again by Sean Woodgate. Good evening, Sean.
Good evening, Dennis, and what a great qualifying session we had with the changing weather. It certainly brought out the best in quite a few of the drivers and a few surprises on the top 5 at least, but it's going to be making for interesting racing.
Alright, so the drivers are on their formation lap now, so while they're heading out, let's have a look at our starting order. So in pole position we have Gerrit Bierkes from Chris Collison, Sean Olivier and Rian van der Westhuizen with a fantastic 4th place. In 5th place we have Dinesh Singh, awesome there as well. Jason Underwood in 6th place, Donovan van Mark 7th place and Peter Murray 8th place. In 9th place Julian Brains, in 10th place Yandre Duppenau, in 11th place Ariane Balder and in 12th place Marius van Wyk. I believe we only have 12 drivers at the moment. I'm not sure if we'll have more for race 2, but that's what we have at the moment. Watch the drivers now heading around.
Well, just now, in qualifying it was grey and gloomy, and now we have a nice bright blue skies with a few clouds about. But of course, this being Montreal, it is fickle when it comes to the weather, so things can change.
Well, as Murray Walker used to say, things can change and usually do.
Yeah.
Right, they're rounding the hairpin, then they'll go down the straights into or through the Wall of Champions. Hopefully they don't go through it.
That straight that you see them change direction to the left, it actually has a number as turn 11, but the next one is a change of direction, but some of the track maps that I see, they don't even number it. So it's insignificant because I think as you leave the hairpin, you're going flat out through the gears until you get to the chicane at the end of the casino straight. So one can disregard both of those because you are so slow out of the hairpin that they don't really make a difference to these cars at all.
Right, drivers will now start forming up on the grid. And then we just have to wait for the several seconds, I think it's about 7 seconds once everyone forms before the lights will go green, and we'll have green flags for race 1 of our round 9 race from Montreal.
But it's going to be on the outside of turn 1, but he will be on the inside of turn 2. So one thinks he's on the wrong side of the track, but I think turn 2 sorts out everything.
Alright, drivers are all in position, almost at permission. Lights go out and we are away. Great start. I'm not sure what happened to Chris.
If he had that gear change problem again that he's been battling with in previous races, he did manage to go. I think he's about in 5th position.
No, he's way down. He's actually in 10th place.
10th position. In 5th is Jason, his teammate. That's why I got confused. So Jason, his teammate, in 5th position. It's going to be interesting because Jason in 5th with Rian and Dinesh and Sean ahead of him, except for Gerrit. And Chris Collison immediately has Peter Murray, Yandre Duppenau, who finds himself down in 8th. I wonder whether he didn't take evasive action not to run into Chris.
Well, he didn't exactly have the greatest qualifiers. I think he only started 7th, so he only lost 1 place on the start.
Okay, so it's going to be an interesting race with everything in the dry now. We'll see the quicker guys. Is that the PZN panel beaters car? Certainly looks like it, making up 1 position. So Yandre up into 7th now. And Julian Brains, he qualified well initially, but then everybody else got up to speed. So Julian's in 8th position, going strong.
Right, so Sean Olivier behind Gerrit at the moment. Looks like Gerrit's starting to pull a bit of a gap.
It's a second already, but it gives Sean an idea of where to go. Not that Sean doesn't know where to go, but it'll be guidance from the champion of the series for the year, and certainly I think he'll learn from that. Yeah, I think he actually cuts the curb, and if he does that too often, then he's going to get a warning. So you don't want to have both wheels on the outside of the white line. So yeah, you see the slight change of direction before they chuck it to the left for turn 1. And there's the pit lane that joins. So this is turn 2. Great grandstands that they have here. Pont de la Concorde, right and left. And I think they'll be changing gears. Here they might be off the throttle and on the brakes. And then flat out again and sweeping to the right for turn 5.
Everyone's staying nice and close behind Ferret here.
Yes.
So I think it's the latter stage of a lap where he lost a bit of time sitting on the previous lap.
Yeah, so maybe his car, just with the wing setting, doesn't have the top speed, because this is also what they call the back straight. This is plus minus in a northerly direction. And it's interesting to see that on the brakes he gets a lot closer again. It's that concertina effect. So they're separating themselves now from Dinash, who's in 3rd. So Dinash and Jason ahead of Rian van der Westhuizen, who's now down in 5th. Jan-Ray Dippenaar is up in 6th. And where's Julian? Julian is up to 8th. Chris Collison has battled up to 10th position already. So he's made up 1 position. Arjan Belder is at the back of the field in 12th position.
Just looking to make a move, I believe, on Peter Murray at the moment.
Yeah, they're still very, very close, considering this is a half-hour race with only 4 minutes run. So Chris will be biding his time. I don't think he'll be taking any chances. He'll wait for the right time to make the pass. Certainly the chicane in the Wall of Champions is not the place to do it. But one of the places that is well known for passing is turn 2. If you can get the car well positioned into turn 1 and use that change of direction to your advantage in turn 2, then certainly that is one of the places, but you've got to be a lot closer than what Chris is now. And then also the 2 turns, the changes of direction, turns 3 and 4, those are potential places for passing. But certainly this is a high-speed circuit. A lot of it is straight, and except for the hairpin and the center curve, and of course the chicane, there's not too much to it as far as vicious turns go. Here comes Chris. He's
being very patient, but you can see he's looking for a gap, but not too sure if we should take the lunge just yet. I think maybe a little bit unsure of the track being dry offline.
Yeah, it's Chris, then Peter Murray ahead of him. Ahead of that is Donovan Vermaat, and in 7th ahead of them is Julian Brown. So those 4 cars are competing for, let's say, Julian's position, number 7. And Rian van der Westhuizen has just been passed by Jan-Ray Dippenaar. So the PZN panel beaters car of Jan-Ray Dippenaar is up into 5th position. Look how close this all is. All Julian got, I think, was there a touch? Did he spin it himself?
I think there was a 3-way touch between Julian. Donovan was going up the inside and pushed, and they got a bit of contact, knocked Donovan slightly wide, and he hit Peter, who was then trying to go up the inside. So unfortunately, Peter losing out there. But he did get going. We see him in the background there. Donovan up the inside here.
Inside of Julian, and that's actually a very, very brave maneuver to do, going up the chicane, because if the other driver were to take the racing line, but I think discretion the better part of valor there not to take the normal racing line. Otherwise Julian would have taken both of them off the circuit. There's Jan-Ray, the PZN panel beaters car, the red, white and black one, and he's up into 5th position. He's only 0.6 of a second behind Jason Underwood, and Jason in turn only 0.4 behind D Nash. D Nash is all of 5 seconds behind Sean Olivier, and Sean Olivier is holding on to Gerrit Beekers for dear life, 0.4 of a second for 1st and 2nd. So very good battle. The Bumblebee has Sean Olivier right there flying along with him.
Make sure that he is still there. You can see he is there. He's right up behind him. As Sean, as I said before, it definitely has pace around this circuit. And I think he could possibly take the win if he can hang in there till the end.
Byway like this. We've heard it from the competitors during the course of this season that about for the first 10 minutes the tyres are good, but the degradation needs to be managed thereafter. D Nash taking that corner very, very wide, which gives behind him Jason Underwood a chance to catch up, because when you go that wide and you've got to bring the car all the way back, you're taking a wider radius, and Jason is right there up on the inside. Is he going to do it in the chicane to spark the car on the inside, prevent D Nash from turning in? I think so. Yeah, D-Nash knows he can't turn it in with Jason up there, and Jason goes up into third position.
D-Nash actually cuts the chicane slightly, so you might get a warning for that. Or certainly some of the points, you have your 5 penalty points, and maybe he's got some penalty points deducted for that. He's got to be careful not to do too many of that, otherwise he will get a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, he seems to be, well, there he lost the back end, and that's really not the fault of Jandre. Jandre just took the inside line. D-Nash had lost the back end, and when the car eventually gripped again, it came to the inside, and there was just a nudge with Jandre, so I think all's fair in love and war, and D-Nash loses another position down to 5th.
Of course, this is now released Jason up into 3rd, so Jason currently in 3rd place.
And so the Team Harder Racing certainly do have it harder than what they are used to, but the fastest lap at this stage, would you believe, by very, very little, is Sean Olivier has the fastest lap. He did a 138.942 compared to Gerrit Beekes' best lap of a 138.985. So it's approximately 4/100ths of a second. Everybody else is running in the 39s and 40s. Certainly Sean Olivier and Gerrit Beekes are in a class of their own in the high 138s.
But watch Jandre, he's just hit the fastest middle sector on this lap. So let's see, maybe he puts in a good lap as well. Gerrit did the fastest first sector, Jandre the fastest middle sector. So Gerrit's first sector was very good. Let's see how the sectors are finishing.
Purple sector 1 and 2 and a personal best, which makes him the quickest car around the track now. 38.6.
Yes, that was quite a lot.
Yeah, so that's 0.3 of a second quicker than Sean Olivier. So the gap down to Sean Olivier, where it was so close at half a second, in the blink of an eye, Sean is 1.6, 1.7 seconds behind Gerrit Beekes, who put in one stonking lap.
I think that's just Gerrit saying, okay, that's enough now. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Now the game's over. I like the camera positions on this circuit. They come right down to the level of the car and follow the car around, especially in the slow corners. So you get to actually see and read the numbers, which often at the other circuits where the camera position is up in a grandstand or something, you don't get the chance to actually read the number. To us, we of course spoiled because of the lap scoring monitor, and the caption at the bottom here tells you the number of the car in red and what position it's in. So the caption there says Chris Collison, car number 22, is in 6th position, and if we look up from 6th position ahead of him is Donovan Vermaak. So Chris Collison is trying to catch up to Donovan, and the gap is only 0.4 of a second and closing.
It's really close up to him at the moment. I think he might make a lunge, maybe into the final chicane.
Yeah, and a defensive drive there, that's quite clever actually by Donovan, by leaving the car on the right-hand side for a long time. That prevents Chris from actually going up the right-hand side. Now he's got to stay behind him on the left to try and get the slipstream, but then that means that Donovan has the racing line, the normal racing line, into the chicane. The next chance to position the car is turn 1, and you actually position it in turn 1 to make the pass in turn 2, but I haven't seen that done today yet. Always right up there on the brakes, and if you have to get off the brakes so much, you actually lose momentum. We said this in one of the portions of the races last week. The one guy had to get off the throttle quite severely to avoid running into the back. If Pont de la Concorde can deliver a pass here, certainly these corners and the double changes of direction make it very interesting. You've got to think a corner or two ahead as to where you're going to put your car. A little bit of a lock-up on the brakes there. So, right there, making a very threatening stance, let's put it that way, because no chance for a rest for Donovan Vermaak, because you know Chris Collison is right there behind him for that 5th position.
Now, right up onto his bumper at the moment, and alongside, putting up alongside now.
Right, so this is on the way to, there's a right-left combination. As they've gone through that, just the left corner. Chris Collison, this is so close. Now he's up on the inside again, but it looks as though Donovan has good speed out of the hairpin. That's definitely, and he just got that fight the way that he wants to drive the hairpin, and Chris has to fight it all the way down the casino straight again to see if he can come up the inside for the chicane. Not close enough.
Oh, Chris losing it slightly there, just staying away from the wall. That was close.
Yeah, and that's the danger. I think you've mentioned it for a couple of the races now. If you use actually too much of the curbing, the natural thing is the momentum throws you to the outside of the circuit, and in this case it's a wall, and all of a sudden you see the gap between the two cars where it was so close. Chris Collison has lost 5 or 6 car lengths. I think his heart must be beating in his mouth, but he'll recover, and he'll do it all over again. 18 minutes to go.
So Donovan can relax a bit. I'm not sure if his lap times will improve, but at the moment we have Yandre Dippenaar right behind Jason Underwood. So Yandre on the charge. Sean Olivier has dropped back to 2 seconds from Gerrit at the moment.
Yandre, by 1/100th of a second, has the best lap time quicker than Gerrit Beekes. He's got a 1:38.61. So somewhere while we were watching this battle, he got flying, did Yandre, or sorry, not this battle, the other one between Chris and Donovan. But Yandre is flying along, and he's now chasing Jason Underwood. And if one looks at the last laps, if he did a 38.6 and Jason did a 40. Now that's the fastest lap. The last laps are both blank, so they both probably cut the corner. We'll have to wait and see. And it's not posting the sector time for Yandre either, so we can't do a straight comparison. Gerrit Beekes running a personal best in sector 1 and sector 1 at 29.8.
Jason to the wall there, sorry to butt in.
Sure. That wall is that chicane is such a difficult place. You're just slightly offline, and yes, that wall is there to bite you.
Of course, Jason is a previous champion. That's why he's running number 1 on his car, so he's entitled to hit the wall of champions.
Well, it looks as though he's got damage, because that's not how you want to hang the tail out coming out of turn 2, because it's going to slow you right down. And Jason now 2.2 seconds behind Yandre Dippenaar, and Yandre Dippenaar, he's a long way back, 4.6 seconds, but watch the space, because certainly we've seen Yandre fight back from worse positions than this, and let's see if he's going to be able to do so.
Well, Gerrit Beekes is just taking back fastest lap on a 38.470.
He just seems to have so much in reserve, and all of a sudden it's 2.8 seconds between him and Sean Olivier.
Sean's times aren't bad. They haven't dipped off too much. He's within 3/10 on his last lap versus his fastest lap.
Yeah, but the 39.3 that his last lap compares with Gerrit's 38.4, so that's 0.9 of a second in one lap that he lost to Sean, and that's why he finds himself 3 seconds behind. So Gerrit Beekes is just making merry along his very way. There's second position coming into the chicane. A little bit further back, here's the PZN car of Yandre. Now, if Yandre can see Sean Olivier's car, he will be able to judge with a quarter of an hour to go whether it's worthwhile running the risk of trying to catch and pass for second, and I think he's certainly going to do so. Yandre a 38.9 the last lap versus the 39.8. So Yandre 0.9 of a second quicker than Sean, and running even faster time than Gerrit Beekes' last lap. So Yandre's flying. He certainly wants to get second place.
Yeah, and I think he can. He's got the pace. He definitely can.
But also, he didn't adapt to the change in weather conditions as quickly as some of the other guys did. And as you say, he didn't have a demon of a qualifying, but he's certainly having, in the dry conditions, a very, very good race to find himself in third. And he can see the second placed man ahead of him. And with 14 minutes to go, there might still be enough time for him to catch. Jason Underwood, what's he doing? He's doing 39.8 compared to Yandre's 38.9, so also 0.9 of a second. But you've got to be in it to win it. We've seen it before that somebody can just make a slight mistake, as I think Jason did there. He got the tail out on the Porsche going out of the hairpin, and that means you've got to get it all lined up neatly again. Somebody, I think, just clipped the apex or didn't run that chicane or that change of direction at all, you just saw dust all over the show. And of course, dust on the tires means the tires have to get rid of that dust before you have optimal grip again and you can get back up to top speed.
So it looks like Peter Murray is closing in on Rian van der Westhuizen.
See what's the gap there? It's 1.5 seconds that Peter has, and in the lap times, we don't have a lap time for Peter Murray in the last lap, but Rian did a personal best. I think it just flashed up there in green. So Rian's still trying his utmost. You've always got yourself as the biggest competitor to race against. Try and compete and improve on your lap times throughout.
They're looking nice and smooth, nice clean lines. You see Rian going very, very wide. They're getting his tail out. They're getting a bit of a tail out as he tightened up the line there.
Yeah, the one thing about the circuit, which is it's not a negative, it's just a comment, there's absolutely no change of height. Like you have, for instance, at Spa-Francorchamps or Kyalami or any of those circuits that you have an elevation change. Here it's just flat as a pancake and it's just the direction that changes.
At the moment, I think this is the closest battle on circuit. The current gap is 1.3 seconds.
No.
Gap is coming down slightly. It was 1.5, it came down to 1.3 there. As we hit the braking zones, it's back down to 1.3 as we come at 1.2 now. We're just slowly chipping away. 1.1 now. Let's see into the braking zone. It'll probably dip under a second.
Yeah. You can also see that he's the car he's chasing Rian ahead of him. The back end is happy out of the hairpin, so it might be an important note to make that might be a point that he can challenge if he can get his car positioned close enough, put it up on the inside at the hairpin.
Let's see as we hit. Oh, we're locking up slightly there. That's of course that time of the race where the guys are going to start struggling with tyre wear. They aren't already. With only 11 minutes left to go in the race, I'm sure the guys are fighting some flat spots even. You see Rian locking up again. That's 2 lockups in the last 3 corners for Rian. He's actually looking quite smooth, so just keeping quiet there while I was watching. He's maybe not taking as many risks as Rian. I think Rian is wearing his tyres, locking a lot, so he might actually struggle towards the end. And Peter might catch him purely on that driving style, different tactics. Maybe taking a bit more cautious, playing the long game.
Yeah, it's 2.3 seconds between them, and with 10.5 minutes to go, that's, I wouldn't say it's quite a big ask, but certainly it can be done. And with Rian's car sliding the back end out and wearing those tires down, it might have an effect. Is that D-Nash ahead of them?
D-Nash just went off, yes.
Yeah, and he just got that set of corners completely wrong, and they both get.
We have a DNF as well for Arjan Belder.
I wonder if he doesn't suffer from a disconnect, because we didn't really see much of Arjan. And then the DNF, which, as we've said before, sometimes if you just go into the wall hard enough, then you do get a DNF. But if you suffer a disconnect as well on your network, then you get a DNF because the server can no longer track you. But it's a pity, because I think when one goes to a sim race like this, you want to at least race till the end, even if it is for last. You want to go there, out there and enjoy yourself. But yeah, bad luck for Arjan. We've seen a few DNFs from him this season. That's Rian, Peter and D-Nash.
Yes.
Nash has recovered, but he's, I wouldn't say the stars and stripes, but the stars very definitely. And then the rest of the colors of the American flag. So you recognize his flashy car anyway. But certainly recognized it when it went off. Interesting to see that the skins actually go as far as indicating where the emergency cutoff switch is on the car. So if you have an accident in the car, you can look just in front of the windscreen on the left-hand side. That's the indicator where the emergency cutoff would be for the marshals. If they get to the car and they have to turn the engine off, that's where the emergency cutoff is.
Getting a rain now, just touching the grass a little bit there.
There's a bit too much curve. Fighting
Yeah.
out. Yeah. Still that coming. With so much curve and the wheels in the air, you've only got two wheels that are gripping, and there's the change for position. As you said, just biting at it slowly but surely, and Peter Marais gets past Rian van der Westhuizen. That was just one mistake. It was just that one set of curves that he used too much of, and that, of course, threw him to the outside, into the barrier. Luckily, he didn't have any damage. It would appear that he doesn't have any damage. He's still in the race, but maybe with Dinesh only 1.2 seconds behind with 7 minutes to go, just more than. Peter's also using that corner at the Wall of Champions, or the chicane. The guys seem to be cutting over the rumble strips completely. So not sure whether the server is going to be issuing warnings, but we've seen a few cars go the whole car. Oh yeah, that's going to be the wall, I'm afraid, for Rion, and Dinesh might be coming past him. That was the back end stepped up completely there. Here's Peter Marais running in isolation now. Let's see, Rian is still indicated as being ahead of Dinesh. I'm quite surprised, because I would have thought that Dinesh would have been right there at him. Unless Dinesh, is now missing in action, has made a mistake himself.
He's there, he's probably just made a mistake, yeah.
Because he's 4 seconds all of a sudden, where he was right there with him, he's all of a sudden 4 seconds behind the car of Rian van der Westhuizen. So somebody that hasn't got a mention is Marius van Wyk. He's one of our veterans in 10th position in the Purple People Eater.
In 10th position, 10 seconds ahead of, 10 seconds behind D Nash. So D Nash has to make a few more mistakes before Marius to be a threat.
And Julian, who was doing so well in qualifying and in the race, is another 23 seconds behind Marius van Wyk. So I think Julian for 11th, Marius for 10th, and Dinesh for 9th. Well, actually, Dinesh is right with Peter Marais again, so I don't know what went wrong and came right, or whether Peter Marais made a mistake, but Dinesh is right there with Peter Marais. Here's Julian Brains, as we said, 24 seconds behind Marius van Wyk. So he's running pretty much a lonely race.
Yeah, not quite the result I'm sure he would have liked. He was looking very strong in qualifying, probably expecting to have a really solid result. And then things just haven't quite worked out for him in the race. But there's at least a race too, so you can make up for it.
Yep. Do you have an in-car with Dinesh?
We can have an in-car with Dinesh, yes.
There you go. That's looking forward at Peter Marais, and we do know that both of them made mistakes at some stages. Dinesh was the big...
Oh, another one there.
Sorry, Dinesh. I asked to go because I thought I saw him catching at such a rate, and then just as we go in car, we're just in time to see him drive straight into the scene of the accident.
And I was saying that he didn't have to worry too much about Morris, but now with a mistake like that, Morris can see him right ahead of him there.
Yeah, so Morris is only 4 seconds adrift, and I think that'll be less depending how much. It's down to 3.5 already, depending how much damage Dinesh has. It's 5 minutes to go. So Marius van Wyk, who we were saying has in the veterans, he's 10th on the track, so he'll score a point in the race overall, but he'll win the veterans category. So for the race, we'll get maximum points for the veterans, and yeah, he'll still try and fight for 9th. Try and attack Dinesh before this race is run.
Yeah, Dinesh better just keep it nice and clean now, because the gap is 3.7 seconds, or now 3.6 seconds. So Morris is there. I think Morris, with not making mistakes and being consistent, even though his pace is slower, is catching at quite a rate.
Yeah.
So will Dinesh make another mistake? No, he makes it nice and smooth through the entrance and the exit of the final chicane. As does Morris.
Almost a perfect line to take, because you just put 2 wheels over the white line and use, I'm not sure what they've got for the green there, whether it's AstroTurf or whether it's painted tarmac, but certainly that seems to be the preferred line. Oh, Marius, who was catching so well, now looking up the wrong direction of the pit lane exit.
Oh dear.
Luckily he's all on his own, so that'll be Marius and Julian Brains, who was a long way back. Now only fine, well, it's still 20 seconds, but Marius now throws away the chance of catching Dinesh.
Of course, the battle here for the final podium position between Yandre Duppenaar and Jason Underwood.
So Jason has come back strong, that he's so close to Yandre Duppenaar. So,
and he's got Chris behind him as well on track. So Chris also recovered a little bit at the start, seemed to make up quite a lot of places, and then his pace kind of just neutralized, and he's been in a bit of no man's. I mean, he's doing 38.9 at the moment, so actually was the fastest driver on circuit the last lap, but he's just too far back.
So the Team Harder Racing guys found themselves in 4th and 5th, but Yandre Duppenaar, PZN panel beaters in 3rd position. He's going to be very threatened, well, for podium position in the race. Of course, the podium position for the day gets determined by your position for both races combined. And like in yachting, the less numbers you have, the better. So, but in motor racing, they actually get the number of points allocated according to the table that Dennis showed at the beginning of the race, and then that gets combined to see. And we've had some strange results already, where I think somebody that had a 5th place finish in one of the 2 races was actually 3rd on the podium and really didn't expect it at all. But the competitors just had one of the 2 races really bad, and that made all of the difference.
Yeah, also, as we're watching Yandre sliding, it just made me think, we have Julian driving tonight. Thankfully he's driving, but he had an upgrade on his wheel, and he hasn't quite got he literally got the wheel working with about an hour before the race went live. So he's kind of tinkering with his settings, and it looked like in the wet he maybe was alright with it, but in the dry he just doesn't have the feel by the looks of things. So maybe he'll slowly tinker with it during the week and he'll be stronger the next round.
We're finishing off at Monza next week, are we, Dennis?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, that's also a nice fast circuit. But certainly, this is also a fast circuit, plenty of straights, and then just a few corners that one actually slows down and brakes for. But at this stage, Yandre Duppenaar, Jason Underwood behind him by half a second, and he doesn't have a moment to relax. But even so, you see Jason, the front end of the car twitching. So I think everybody with 1 minute, 10 seconds to go is on, well, they're probably beyond what the tyres can give their best. So they're just managing the tyres for the checkered flag. And if that means for Jason that he'll settle for 4th, I think he'll settle for 4th just to ensure that he gets the points and just doesn't scribble it into the wall or something like that.
Yeah. That's a curve being taken there. A bit of cross on the exit there, and that's very dangerous. Yeah.
He's lucky to get it back, but I think that effectively says goodbye to the battle that he was hoping to have with Yandre.
We go live, of course, to our race leader, who's he coming up to lap? Julian Brains.
Yeah. Like, if this is the chicane, then they'll probably have one more lap to do.
Yes.
Champions with 19 seconds to go, and that will start the last lap.
He can't afford to back off to ensure that he doesn't need to do a lap.
Yeah, Sean Willifee is only 3.8 seconds behind him. So Sean had a good, he was really, really good in the first section of the race. Then he seemed to fall back, and now the last section of the race, he's only 4.3 seconds behind Gerrit Beekers. So he's had a stunning race, and his best lap is also only 0.4 of a second behind Gerrit. So consistency on the track and also consistency in the lap time. So he's going to be pretty much chuffed with that. And Yandre Duppenaar is 9 seconds behind Sean, so I don't think he's going to worry about too much. But Jason Underwood, 0.2 of a second behind Yandre. So that could be an interesting battle for 3rd position still, with the PZN panel beaters car having to fend off the Team Harder Racing car. Sean a bit isolated, being 4.5 seconds away from Gerrit. There's Gerrit in the lead, there's Sean Willifee in second as they go down the back straight and then into the hairpin.
Julian getting quite a slide on there.
I think Julian's just going to prevent himself from being lapped, but I'm not sure how the sim works, whether he'll actually then have to complete the lap that he will then have started, because the race leader hasn't been across the line yet.
I think so. Although it is the lap, the race is officially over. It's not showing the checkered flag yet.
Yeah.
So Gerrit will now come across the line to take race 1 victory for the night.
And a race well driven, certainly. And it looks as though Jason Underwood's just not going to be able to catch Jandre de Pinaar.
I say just, but I mean, that's as close as it gets. Will he pull alongside you? And Jandre takes third. That is very, very close between the two of them. And of course, Chris is right behind as well. Looks like the gap between Chris and Jason has extended. So Chris lost a bit of pace towards the end.
Certainly exciting race at times, but they seem to, in the positions they are now, there hasn't been happening except for a few cars going off, which then effectively killed the battle that they were fighting.
Battle still going towards the end here. Looks like Pitcher was hanging in there. The gap was 1.3 the last we checked. It was slightly lower there going into the final chicane. He's right up behind. Got under a second, but now I think Rian will just cruise away with a second gap over Peter there. Taking 7th place for Rian and 8th place for Peter Marais. Marius van Wyk will come across the line. He made up 9th place, so he has actually got past Dinesh Singh with Dinesh making his mistakes. A good result for Marius.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be too dissatisfied with that. And just as I say, just a pity for the DNF for Arjan. Julian Brains, good in qualifying at times, but not so great in the race. But as you say, he's battling with a new wheel setup. So hopefully it will be better setup for race 2, and he'll have a better race then.
And this will be the final driver to come across the line. So we're going to head off to an ad break any moment and prepare for race 2. So until then, hang tight. Make yourself a cup of coffee and join us in a few minutes for race 2.
Speak to you then.
welcome back everyone to race 2 of the Sim Experience South Africa Weldmech Porsche Supercup round 9, coming to you live in the Montreal circuit, or the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal, Canada. It's a 30-minute race. I am your commentator Dennis Mitchell, joined once again by Sean Woodgate. Good evening, Sean.
Good evening once again, Dennis. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully we have lots of fun as we did in race 1, but there was actually lots of fun in qualifying already. So we'll see what happens in race 2.
Alright, so our starting order for race 2, we have Gerrit Beerkes in pole position from Chris Collison, Sean Olivier and Rian van der Westhuizen. Then Dinesh Singh in 5th place, Jason Underwood 6th, Donovan Vermaak 7th and Peter Murray in 8th. In 9th place we have Julian Brains, in 10th place Jandre Dupnar, 11th place Arjan Balde and 12th place Marius van Wyk. The weather forecast for this race is it's clear with a lot of showers on the way, so expect to see some pit stops and some action mid-race.
It certainly does add a bit of excitement when the drivers have to go in for tyre change, and the decision when to make the tyre change if they go to wet weather conditions. And considering that it's half an hour, if it's only a shower, then at what point do they, if it does dry out, do they come back to dry racing setup? So we'll have to wait and see what the weather's going to do.
Should be an exciting one to watch. Hopefully YouTube is running right, so apologies for those that are watching and are having issues with it. We're having a few gremlins. I think it's a software issue on my end. I'll try and sort it out for the next round. If I say that, I see it's actually buffering, so this will probably be a recording that'll go up live afterwards, so apologies for that everyone. I am recording it.
Yeah, if anything can go wrong, it will. But luckily the racing has been going well.
Alright, so we see Gerrit now heading up to starting position.
Let's hope Chris has got the gear change or whatever it was that bugged him in the start in race 1, that he's got that sorted out.
Right, so everyone now takes up positions. In the background we see Julian Brains coming up to the grid. And Jandre Dupnar, Arjan Balde and Marius van Wyk. Alright, so we'll now get ready to go. As the time counts down. And we're away.
Right, this time certainly no problem for Chris Collison. And they are almost 3 abreast as they go into turn 1. And Chris just couldn't hold up to Gerrit. Gerrit just get such a good start. So first, second and third off turn 2 are the way that they were off the grid or in qualifying. So it looks as though Chris managed to sort out the gear change, whatever it was, that just didn't get him going. We know that on previous occasions he got started but then couldn't get first gear to second gear, and that dropped him way down, although he did come back quite strongly. But Sean Olivier holding off Jason Underwood for that 3rd and 4th position. So everybody settles into their positions as they go down the back end of the circuit for the first time in this half-hour race.
So the difference in this race versus race 1, Sean Olivier is now not in 2nd place, and we saw how strong he was in the start of race 1. But now we've got Chris Collison having a good start, so will Chris be able to challenge? We know he had good pace mid-race and towards the end. So he might possibly, at one point he did have fastest lap in the last race, so maybe he'll actually be able to chase. Keep an eye on that gap, it's currently 9/10. So let's see if Chris is able to get everything warmed up and start attacking rather than defending. We can see he's taking a slightly defensive line, moving over to the center of the track there.
Yeah, Sean Olivier is making life difficult for him early on already.
Slight rush of the wall there.
Yep. And that's only lap 1.
Yep, I have to do that another 20 odd times.
And then if it's wet and you're on the wrong tires, that might be even worse. But let's not hope that that happens to anybody.
Right, so here we go. Everyone's in position. We have Garrett Beckers in first place, Chris Collison in third place, second place, Sean Oliver in third place, Jason Underwood is currently in fourth place, Peter Murray in fifth. So having a good start, Peter Murray. Andre Dippenaar sixth place, and I'm sure catching up behind Peter as we see there on screen. Julian Brain seventh place, Dinesh Singh eighth place, Donovan van Mark 9th place, Marius van Wyk 10th, Björn van der Veste is in 11th, and Arjan Valde in 12th.
Andre Dippenaar in 6th. I think he had qualifying in 8th. He just gone under the bridge. I think that joins the island to the mainland. But in the changing weather conditions, there's a cut of circuit, quite a big one at that for Donovan van Mark. He just didn't make the corner at all. But getting back to Andre Dippenaar, he didn't like the change in weather conditions that happened in qualifying, and thus didn't qualify very well, but came back strongly in the race, and we'll have to wait and see if he's going to do it as well again this race, because in the first race, Andre I think he qualified 8th, and he came up all the way into 3rd position for the first race. So let's see if he can fight up Andre up into 6th, as we said, from 8th, and he is within half a second of Peter Murray.
You can see it's starting to split now already, so the rain's actually come quite early.
Racing line seems to be okay. There's no spray behind the cars for now, but if you're going to be, well, the mixture of the marbles, the bits of rubber that come off, and the wet, then if you're on slicks, that's not going to be very good if you're off the racing line, because it literally is like driving on marbles. And with the addition of a bit of moisture, that's going to be sliding all over the show. But certainly at this stage, Dinesh Singh and Donovan van Mark. Donovan just behind Dinesh, and it's a 0.3 of a second, so it's everything to fight for, certainly. We'll see if Dinesh can stay, and Dinesh himself is not too far behind Chris Collison. So Chris Collison up 2 cars ahead here, so it's still a battle going on. There's the point where the island joins the mainland, as I said. So certainly that's, I think, as they get through turn 6 and 7 down on the way to turn 8, they go through underneath the bypass.
Yeah, so Peter Murray actually having a solid race right behind Jason and Andre at the moment. So we'll see as the track conditions change, will this mix up the grid slightly?
Right, so Dinesh is fighting off Donovan van Mark. That's for 7th and 8th. That's only half a second between the two of them. But if you look down the straight here, you can see 3 cars and then another 3 cars, so 2 sets of 3 almost. There's one going into the pits. Who was ahead of Dinesh? Chris Collison. So maybe he's decided that he's going to go for the wets early, and if it plays into his hand that when he comes out of the pits and it actually does bucket down, then he's going to be on the optimum tire for the weather conditions a lot earlier than everybody else.
Yeah, that's going in very quick, and it looks like it was starting to spit, and then the rain sort of stopped. It subsided a bit, so let's see. Is it going to rain more? Is it going to take a while for it to rain? He's taking a chance going in so early.
Yeah, the cloud cover, certainly where it was bright blue, it's now very grey, and a lot more grey in some sections. So who knows, maybe he's made the right decision. There in the distance there was a bit of blue sky, but at the moment above them it's gone a bit grey. So if it does start raining now and he's on wets, but I don't think you want to get the wets hot so quickly in their life as what he's potentially going to be doing now. So
it's really raining a lot harder now, though.
Yes. So we don't see the windscreen wiper on the car that we're in. So
actually we do. We can see it right along the bottom. It's just...
Oh, there it is. It's actually faster than what my eye is. And Dinesh didn't get that corner, the exit out of the hairpin right at all, which means that Donovan van Mark could catch up right to him, and now it's actually splitting down. So maybe a great decision there by Chris Collison, and Julian Brains has also gone on to the wets. So maybe the two of them are now 11th and 12th, so don't last for Julian and second to last from Chris, But if everybody else has to go into the pits, I'm not sure how long a pit stop takes for change of tyres. And Dean Ash has got past Donovan. So a great run there. Is he still able to break for turn one? He runs very wide, which means he's going to be very slow through turn two. But Dean Ash manages, or Donovan doesn't get it right out of turn two. That's a hard hit into the Intel wall coming out of turn two. So I'm not sure whether the system's going to like that at all. And everybody going all over the show now, except where the road goes. So I think the conditions are now definitely, even car number 22, is Team Harder Racing is fighting to keep that car on the road. So we'll have to wait and see. And that's Chris Collison, who's actually on wets, that went off there. So whether it was just a momentary lapse of concentration or that caught him out, or he didn't go into the corner correctly, but that car was also off the road. Yeah, you can see now the spray coming up behind the cars, so certainly it is damp.
See Ariane Belder currently in the pits, getting out of his pit garage. Also on a fresh set of wet tires. He's obviously decided it's now too wet.
Yeah, I think the change, when it is raining like this, then the decisions there, I can see his car, the windscreen wiper, now that I know where to look for it. Is there you can see what we were talking about early in the race. There's a car coming out of turn one and into turn two, and Arjan was leaving the pit exit and joining at turn two. So that luckily worked out very well for both of them. But Julian has gone to wets, but he's sliding it all over the show. So maybe the wets aren't getting up to temperature, although they've got big rubber blocks on them, so they should actually grip in the wet conditions, and you don't want to get them hot. So yeah, we appear to have shadows and sunshine again, so maybe conditions are going to change twice, who knows. But certainly a lot of spray behind the cars at this stage.
And the top 7 drivers, or top 8 drivers, all in the pits at the moment.
Right, so they're changing, and what's happening to the cars in the lead? Gerrit Beekers is still indicated as being in the lead, so has he been in and out? Sean Olivier up into second, Jandre Dippenaar into third, Jason Underwood in fourth, slots in now Peter Marais in fifth, and Dean Ash back out again on wets in sixth position, Chris Collison in seventh. So Jandre, we were talking about him just now after the start, having gone from 8th to 6th. Now Jandre finds himself in third position, but 5 seconds behind Sean Olivier, who in turn is almost 4 seconds behind Gerrit Beekers.
Yeah, very interesting weather conditions that we're having. It seems to be raining, clearing, raining even harder.
Yeah, making it very difficult for everybody. And the other thing about the wet weather tires, we know that the degradation on the dry weather tires starts quite early. We haven't had the opportunity to ask any of the pole sitters or the people that attain the pole position in a wet race how long the grip lasts on a wet weather tire. So in this race, they went to wets fairly quickly, considering it's now 19 minutes ago. So it was definitely within the first 6 or 8 minutes that the rain came down. So we'll probably have more than 20, 22 minutes. If it stays and they don't have to go back to dry weather tires, then certainly it's going to be an interesting question to ask as to how long did these wet weather tires give them some form of grip, even though it was raining.
So Chris Collison is up to 7th place after having his pit stop earlier than everyone else. It didn't really gain him any positions, because now that everyone has done their pit stops, he's actually lost out ever so slightly. And he's gone into the pits again.
Now, the biggest winner is Jandre Dippenaar at this stage. Now it's going to be interesting what Chris is going to do. Is he going to take a chance and go from wets back to dry weather tires?
He's just done drive through. He obviously had a penalty. Maybe he's just gone off too many times.
Yeah. Because at one stage I was saying everybody's going everywhere except where the road points them. Again, we see a condition where Chris leaving the pits, and this is Dean Ash all over the show. Chris leaving the pits, giving way to a car that's coming out of turn one and through the center curve, which is turn two. So, yeah, the first penalty that we see tonight. And Dennis managed to catch that on camera. So that's what a drive-through looks like at Montreal Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. We haven't mentioned it's 4.361 kilometers long, and this layout has been around since 1996.
Another driver in the pits. Was that another one for a penalty? Marius van Wijk.
Yeah. Also no stop, so potentially a drive-through penalty. So, and also having to give way to traffic that's already on the road. So Marius van Wijk comes in behind Rian van Westhuizen. Now we saw in the race was it, here's Arjan changing tires. You see the jacks go up. And we saw in the race that Rian van Westhuizen in race 1, the back end of that Porsche was there. It goes down off the jacks. They get everything out of the way. Here the jacks go down in the front.
What is the gap? I wonder if he's putting on different tires. Is the weather maybe clearing enough? Is he chancing it to go to slicks? Would it be worth it?
He seems to be stationing for a very, very long time though.
Yeah, maybe he's putting in fuel as well. Sometimes the guys forget to tell the pit crew not to put fuel in, because I think by default they put the fuel in. You have to tell them you don't want fuel.
Yeah, with a half-hour race, when we normally run a full half hour, there hasn't been a requirement for fuel yet. That's one of the things that the drivers have mentioned as well, that on a heavy fuel load, even though the car gets lighter, the wear on the tires is more of a disadvantage than what you gain by running with a lighter fuel load in the second half of the race. There's Dinash ahead of Donovan Vermaak. So Donovan's vision will be a bit blurred by the spray in front of him from Dinash. The gap is 0.7 of a second. So we can wait and see whether that's going to change at all. Dinash holding off from Donovan Vermaak at this stage. Still a fair amount of spray coming from behind the car. There is a bit of blue sky. If we look at the end of the straight, is the hairpin coming up now? No, I lie. This is the wrong part of the track that I've got in mind here. So we have to reset and just recalibrate where we are. There's the Rolex. I think it changes direction now. And then we go to the hairpin. And Dinash doesn't find the hairpin. And it looks as though Donovan Vermaak has passed Dinash with the greatest of ease, actually. Must have some of those grandstands overlooking the hairpin and the exit out of the hairpin are very, very good, because when you're that high, you'll see the car all the way from the approach to the hairpin, through the hairpin, and out of the hairpin from the grandstand. So that must be quite a nice place to sit.
I think Dinash just hanging in there. Oh, we have a hiccup there. I'm not sure if that is a bit of net code there.
Yeah, but it seemed to lose track distance as well. I think that was the exit out of the chicane that potentially he didn't get quite right. And whether he had to come off or whether he brushed the wall. But certainly he's lost a lot of track distance and seems to be slowing. This is through turn 2 that he's gone now. The curve away from, there's turn 3 to the right, turn 4 to the left. And it's looked at, it has like a squiggle to it and then a continuous curve to the right. This is the end of sector 1. Then the 90-degree left is turn 6, into turn 7. Then it's it's not quite the back straight because it has an arc to it, but they'll be flat out. That wouldn't bother them too much, the fact that it's not dead straight. Then you have, as you go through under Petronas, you have a not quite 90, but you have a right-left combination. Then there's more straight circuit, another bridge that you go through under Canada Bridge. And another one, the Rolex Bridge, and the Rolex Bridge indicates you're about to get to the hairpin. It straightens out, which is nice, but you don't leave a curve and then go straight into the hairpin. You actually get time to balance the car in a straight line, going to the hairpin, out of the hairpin, and as I said, depending what material you read, the one corner definitely has a number, that's 11, and then some places refer to turn 12. But I think to these guys that it's not seen as a corner. Interesting to see all the advertisement for Intel. They of course make a chipset in the computing industry. There's the chicane, the Wall of Champions, and that's one lap around Montreal Circuit Gilles Villeneuve.
Thank you, Dinash Singh, for that.
Yeah. seemed to get it all right this time round. I thought he was very slow out of turn 2, but then, he's very late on the brakes, or maybe it's just the changing weather that he didn't get into the corner quite when he wanted to, I don't think.
So something else to look out for. Chris Collison is also on slick tires now, as well as Orion Belder. So Chris taking the gamble and going for slicks. Let's see how his lap times pan out. At the moment, he's a bit slow. In sector 1, he's about 3 seconds off. Sector 2, about a second off. So maybe the tires are just taking a bit of time to warm up, as the track is still a bit wet by the looks of things. There's still a lot of spray on the track. We'll see how the temperature and everything comes into play, but it looks like the rain has stopped.
Chris was quick to go in for the slicks, and from what we saw looking at his car from trackside, the spray seems to be a lot less. So let's see what Chris Collison does from 8th position. He actually had the fastest lap, I think, earlier. Just have to get my wits about me. 35, 65, 68, 108, 9, 10. So I'm not sure whether this was on dry tire, but he's got the best lap at the moment as Chris Collison, a 138.5. Now that's Gerrit Beekers by comparison, a 138.6. So I think that might have been set on the wets. So it's going to be interesting to see how quickly he gets up to race pace. At the moment, he's doing a 34.4 in Sector 1. Gerrit, by comparison, a 32.3. So that's about 2 seconds worth just in Sector 1 alone that Chris is slower. But if the track dries out enough, and he might have the advantage, but then again, he's 38 seconds behind Dinesh. But that being said, if it does dry out enough, then all the cars ahead of Chris Collison still have to go in for tires.
Yeah, so this is a bit of an interesting one, seeing the wet tires are still seemingly the tire to be on, judging by the lap times.
Yeah.
When is the crossover going to come? When is the slick tire going to be the better tire to be on? I think Chris is the one that will give us that answer, but at the moment he's just not lighting up the times.
No, a 33-second for Chris and a 32.2 for Gerrit, a 32.1 for Sean Willifee. That's the times in Sector 2, which, as we said, is from turn 6 to just before the hairpin. So it's a second. If it were to dry out quickly now, then Chris would probably be in the pound seats, but certainly not giving him an advantage at this stage. He's 38 seconds behind Dinesh Singh. As I said before, I'm not sure how long the pit stop stage was that contact between the two of them. That's Rian van der Westhuizen. Is that Julian Brains that just got past him, or Rian? Yes, it's Rian and Julian. So Rian's back past Julian again. So there was a swap and a swap back again. So they seem to be fighting each other all the way. And both Rian and Julian are still on the wet weather tires. I see no spray from Rian's car, the lime green and yellow one in the front. So it looks as though weather conditions are improving and track conditions are improving as well. So I think the switch back to slicks will be coming probably sooner than later. And there are still 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, I think the guys are going to start burning out their tires at this rate.
Yeah, do you try and run your wet tire all the way for another? There's a bit of spray, so they'll be looking for that. There's another patch. So they'll be looking for those patches to cool the tires down. And are there enough such patches to actually cool the tires enough to make them last for the rest of the race?
It looks like the sun just jumped up from behind the cloud now.
Now there's a lot of blue sky as you head down the casino straight towards the chicane. The cars have a shadow now as well, as do the bridges that go across the track. So now the track's going to dry out very quickly. And Chris Collison might have made the right decision. He's now 36 seconds behind Dinesh. So if we look ahead of Dinesh, there's a big gap as well between Peter Murray, 10 seconds about to Jason Underwood.
Donovan getting it all wrong there.
Yeah. There's still that one patch that seems to be quite damp. Donovan from Mark still going strong.
So when is everyone else going to jump in for dryers? Or are they going to jump in for dryers? I think the guys out front, if they stay out, depending on the times, I don't think they need to. As long as their tires can hang in there.
Gerrit's just done a personal best in Sector 3. Comes up in green with a 41.58. Yandre Dippenaar runs a 40.97. Let's see what Chris has. Chris hasn't got a time in Sector 3 indicated. Chris, the last Sector 1 time was a 34.6. Gerrit a 32.2. Yandre 32.8. And they're all on wet weather tyres, so they're 2 seconds a lap quicker than him. Jason Underwood into the pits. He's on dries. I'm not sure whether he's going to change.
He's going for it, yes.
He's going for certainly the dry tyres. So that's going to be interesting with this bright sunshine. I think he expects the conditions to change. He's lost position to D Nash already. He's out on circuit. There's nobody in sight. And certainly it looks very dry now. There's a little damp spot, if my tongue and my brain would speak the same language. So yeah, we hope they don't run into any damp pots. But certainly it looks as though he's going to be trying his best. And Jason into 7th position, Chris Collison, his teammate just behind him, but 26 seconds behind him. So Team Harder Racing certainly are having a difficult night out there tonight. But immediately Jason does a 31.3, which is quicker than Gerrit, quicker than Yandre, quicker than D Nash. So
second faster in Sector 1 alone, yes.
Yes. So that's going to be potentially making a difference. But the 10 seconds that he's behind, if D Nash stays on the wets, the chances are he'll catch him quite quickly if the track does dry out.
So I think it's possible that Jason will catch D Nash, and therefore he might also possibly catch Donovan. And Donovan is within a second of Peter, so I think he could potentially get 4th place, but the gap from 4th to 3rd is 20 seconds.
Is that Donovan that had a close brush with the wall there? So certainly a very, very close race, so we'll have to wait and see. If you're off the line though with the wet, then certainly the marbles and everything are going to be very difficult, whether you're on wets or dries, but very changeable conditions. There's D Nash, but we don't say there, only comes behind D Nash as Jason now. So Jason is now 10 seconds. What did I say earlier on? He was behind him. So with only 5 minutes 40 to go, and the lap around this circuit is 1:38, it's going to be very, very close. I don't think Jason will probably get past D Nash and maybe Donovan, but not much further progress than that.
No, it looks like Sector 1 is working for the dry tyres, but he lost a lot of time in the middle sector and the final sector. Perhaps it's just a bit too damp there still. We know that we did see some damp patches on the back straight, but maybe it's just too damp for the slicks and they have to apply caution and they lose all the time they gained in Sector 1.
Now the other thing is Sector 2 has that straight piece between 7 and 8, and then another straight piece between 9 and the hairpin. So there it makes no difference, I think, having dry or wet weather tyres, because you're going in a straight line. And then, as you said, if you're running down the casino straight, then if your car's fast, your car's fast. It's not a big change of direction. So also not a big change. But Sector 1 is the one that the dry tyres, if you require the grip from slicks, there's quite a few corners in Sector 1. Oh, somebody, is that Donovan getting it pointing the wrong way at the Wall of Champions? He stays up the way.
D-Nash just getting through in time there.
Yeah, I think he actually just hesitated enough to net when he saw D-Nash coming. He let him go. So D-Nash up to a very credible 5th position.
This is now the question. Why did he go off there? We see Morris off as well. So is this now a case of guys making mistakes because their tyres aren't right? Morris, we can see, is on the slick making mistakes. We saw Donovan going off, he's on the wet making mistakes. Could be for totally different reasons. The wet is maybe worn out, the dry is just not up to temperature.
Who's ahead of Morris? Was that Julian that just went?
No, that's Donovan.
Okay. So Donovan might be getting a stop-go soon if he carries on with that driving style. And that's the last thing you want, because that's going to cost you time and positions. Donovan is in 6th, and he is 2.8 seconds. He's definitely going to lose that if he does get a drive-through. I'm not saying he's going to. I'm just commenting on what we observe. But certainly, if you're going to cut the corners like that, then the server is probably going to be quite strict on you.
And here comes Jason. So I think the slick tires are starting to work. He's got very good sector 1. He's got a decent sector 2. I think he's a couple of tenths up in sector 2 overall. Sector 3 I think is where he's losing a bit.
He's got 2 cars in sight. So if he can, but there's only 3 minutes to go. So it's going to be probably this lap and one more. Yeah, potentially depends when where Gerrit crosses the finish line, and Gerrit's off into the distance. So Gerrit might actually get them to do 2 more laps, and that will be a benefit for Jason, because he's chasing on slicks and he needs a few more laps. Here's Gerrit across now. This is down the back section, I think, already. So the chances are he's going to finish, well, not the chances are, he'll finish this lap and one more, because he's 2 minutes 15 to go. So yeah, he's in the hairpin. Now he's got the casino straight, and that's a long piece of straight, and then the chicane, and then the finish line. If that happens, or if he gets to the finish line with less than 1 minute 40, then the chances are we're definitely going to have one more lap. But if he gets there with more than 1 minute 40 remaining, then we might even have 2. 1 minute 49 now. So going to be very interesting where everybody is. Just look at this bunch of cars that have different strategies but are so close together. Whoops, that's not the way to do it, and the circuit's going to smack you. For that, was that, just trying to think, was that Rian van Westhuizen?
No, Jason passed Donovan for Mark. Donovan went off track and Jason just nipped it up
Okay, so it was Donovan.
Oh dear. 3-1 didn't go there.
Yeah, and the loser there was, see them if they lose.
Jason Underwood.
Yeah, Jason's going to be stuck there, so he's got to get going again, and it was so close, but now all of a sudden it's 9 seconds again. Yeah, and that's about it with a minute to go. So Gerrit is probably, depending where Gerrit is, whether he comes across the line with time remaining, or whether he actually still gets to complete this lap and one more. But certainly at this stage, Gerrit seems to be, from what I can see on the lap scoring monitor, in the second half of the lap. So with 30 seconds to go, he might even, who knows, we'll have to wait and see. Here he comes out of the hairpin now, gets back in, stepping out. He can afford to slow down, because Sean Olivier is quite a distance behind him, if he should choose to do so. 13 seconds anyway. I don't think he's going to get to the finish line in 13 seconds. It's going to be the checkered flag.
This is definitely the final lap. Let's put up the sign.
So, yeah. Right, so Chris Collison gets the quickest lap by hook or by crook, and Gerrit Beekers gets the 2 race wins.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer the latter.
Yeah, 4 seconds. Oh, we're into negative time already, so the clock has run out. So
Sean takes a double second, I believe. He was second in race 1, wasn't he?
Let's have a quick look if I've got the results. Sean Olivier, yes. Gerrit, Sean, Jandre Dippenaar was 3rd in race 1. So let's see.
3rd again.
Yeah, so 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, done and dusted.
Peter Mireille, solid 4th place at the moment, so that's a good result for Peter. That'll do his championship a lot of good.
Yeah. The gap between the first 3 cars was actually quite close at the end of the day, or a lot closer than what I'd expected. But a great fight back by Jandre in, if you consider his qualifying position, a great fight back in race 1 and in race 2. And good racing by Sean to get second in both races as well. We don't mention Gerrit. It's sort of become an expectation that he wins the race. And he showed that regardless of the conditions, he's just got this car totally balanced.
It's kind of sad that the tire changes didn't work out with the slicks, because the lap times of the guys on slicks, they were doing 42s, where everyone else was doing 46, 47. So it was faster, it just wasn't fast enough.
Yeah. I think the time that you take to do the tire change was more of a negative compared to the gain that you had of being on the right tire.
Yeah, I think the race needs to be a lot longer. The track just doesn't dry up enough for the. I mean, I think at the moment, I think the track is only now starting to become ideal for slicks.
Yes. So the wet weather tire is the tire to be on for a lot longer than what the rain. Or you stay on the wet for a lot, even quite a lot longer once the rain has subsided.
All right, we're going to hit to an ad break. We'll be back shortly.
Until then.
right, welcome back, everyone. This is, of course, the end of the Sim Experience Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 9 from the Montreal or Circuit Gilles Villeneuve from the Montreal in Canada. That's the end of this round. So, of course, we are now joined by our top 3 drivers. Well, unfortunately, only 2 of the top 3 are here currently. So, at the moment, our top 3, we have Gerrit Beekes, Sean Olivier, and Jandre Dippenaar. Sean Olivier not here at the moment, so has technical issues. If he joins, we will drag him in. Otherwise, we might drag in, I think 4th place was Donovan Vermaak. We might drag him in, but otherwise we're just going to stick with 2 drivers we have. So let's start with Gerrit. Gerrit, an interesting round. You seem to dominate both race 1 and race 2 as usual. Unfortunately, the weather didn't make a difference for you. You just carried on your merry way. How did your round go? How did you like the weather? Did you find that your wet weather tires were giving you any issues towards the end?
Yeah, let's start with qualifying. So qualifying, I timed it really well. Right at the end, I could, it dried out enough so that I can squeeze out a little bit of time. And then race 1 was pretty much uneventful. Sean was actually quite fast. He was pushing me there in the beginning. And then, in race 2, I think I pitted a little bit too late, but I was losing time there, but it still worked out fine. I still came out ahead. And then with, let's say, about 2 or 3 laps to go at the end, with the track drying out, those wet weather tires were completely cooked. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but I went off twice, I think, in the last lap.
No, we didn't catch that.
Yeah, so I kept it upright and across the finish line, it was fine.
All right, then Jandre, then over to you. Speaking of the tires, we saw you didn't get a good qualifying lap. So I think you started 7th, if I'm correct. But yet in both races, you worked your way up to 3rd. So obviously you got everything right in the race, that you just couldn't quite get the lap in qualifying unless you had other issues. Did you find, I know you were saying between the break that you were having stuttering in the one race. Did you have stutters in both races? Did you have stutters in qualifying? What all affected you?
In qualifying, I went out the late with the tires, screwed up my hot lap, and that was my last chance that I had to get to the front. So I went from 2nd to 10th in qualifying. And the first race, it was fine, the stuttering. The second race, as soon as it started raining, it stuttered. I don't know why, because in practice I never had any problems or whatsoever. So yeah, it was quite difficult, but we managed to come to the front and just finish 3rd.
And how were your tires towards the end? Were you, because you were one of the drivers that did stay on, I think we only had 3 or 4 drivers chance the slicks and it didn't work out for them. So it seemed like staying on the wet was the right call, but it looks like the tires were just at that point where they were about to fall apart.
I had, I think, about 68% of tires left at the back. The front was around about 70%. But I forgot to adjust my brake bias as soon as it started raining, so I had troubles with braking. I don't know if you saw that I took a few seconds out of Sean in the last two laps because I adjusted my brake bias then. So, yeah, the tires was not that bad towards the end.
Yeah, it was a surprise. We were kind of expecting the guys in the slicks to be catching, but they were at the end. I think the difference between Jason's fastest time and Gerrit and your time and Sean was only about 3 seconds. So the gap and the time that he lost from the pits, he just wasn't able to make it up. And the problem with the slicks was you go slightly off and you hit a wet patch, and then you lose all the time that you made up. So, and we did see Jason make a mistake. He was actually catching up and fighting for a position, and then couple of guys, they end up having a bit of a collision and he lost it all. So it's a very risky strategy to go to the slick tires on a drying track, and it just didn't seem to work out for the guys that did it. Sean, would you like to ask any of the drivers a question before we say goodnight?
I'll just say one quick one to Gerrit. We came back from Zandvoort last weekend, which has some very, very nice banked corners. Then to come to a circuit like Gilles Villeneuve, which is flat as a pancake, no undulation in height either, no elevation change. Which do you prefer? Do you like the banked corners, or do you like the layout of this circuit where it's completely flat?
Yeah, it depends on the car. For the Porsche, I think Montreal suited the car. Because it's nice and flat. The Porsche, because it's such a loose car, it actually enjoys the flatter track without the bumps. It makes braking easier. That undulation that you get at Zandvoort actually makes the car really unstable into the braking sector. So yeah, the flatter track suits the car more. So I enjoyed this track more.
And next week, of course, is Monza. Do you think that'll be a good circuit for the Porsche?
Yes, I do, and I think racing will be very close there because everybody knows the track. It'll suit the car because you've got hard braking sections, also flat. I think racing will be close.
We look forward to it then. Back to you, Dennis.
All right, and I'm going to say good night to our drivers. So I'm going to drop you guys out. Thank you and congratulations on your podium results.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, then as we say our goodbyes for the night, let's say what is next week. We, of course, have the Monza circuit, which is the final round of the championship. So that is round 10 of our 10-round championship. So that'll be a very fast track. And as Gerrit was saying there, it's hard braking zones into all the corners. There's not a lot of undulation. There is a fraction here and there, but it's neither here nor there. There's no real fast flowing corners apart from the final corner. So I think apart from that, and maybe the parabolica before that, the fast sort of flowing chicane. Other than that, it is pretty much sort of braking, turn, accelerate. And I think that will suit the characteristics of the car better. So we'll see how the final sector is. But I think the rest of the lap, maybe the drivers will find it a bit easier to drive and to race and to stay close to everyone. Of course, slipstreaming might be an issue there. We've got lots of long straights. So that might be something to consider. Then, of course, with the long straights means there's a long braking zone. So that might make for good passing opportunities.
We'll have to wait and see, but certainly by the sounds of it, the drivers are keen and look forward to racing at Monza next week.
All right, so until next week, we will catch you all then. Have a good week. And unfortunately, for those that were trying to watch us live, apologies that we had a problem with the stream, but it will be up on the channel. So if you're watching this, you would have known that. And have a good week. And until next week, hopefully we have a good stream next week. Otherwise, have a good week and we'll catch you then.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.